the nitty-gritty. Conversations get real live, it's time for the nitty-gritty. The revolution's not televised, it's time for the nitty-gritty. Reaching out to your conscious mind, it's time for the nitty-gritty. More than talking, we taking action, it's time for the nitty-gritty.
YouTube, we up. IG, we up. Facebook, we up. What's going on, everybody? Yeah. Tell them about some funk. Oh, new artists, they do funk too. That's our roots, y'all. Ride back the block. Ride back the block. Reels, what's up? One way, what's up? I see you, cuz. Ride back the block. If you're wondering who I'm listening to right now, DJ Morton. His new album, literally just came out this past weekend. The song is Ride Back the Block. Hot joint. I like it. Yeah, that's what we need to do. We gotta buy back the block. We need to invest our money and stop buying all that Gucci and all that and don't need to be flexing on people trying to make folks feel bad so they don't have things.
PJ, I can be a background singer.
I'm just saying, I can talk in that joint like
PJ, I'm an extra girl.
this is a hot track right here though. PJ did something special with this one. I'm just saying. It's your boy Jay DeCosta.
And it is your girl Katniss.
Together we are the nitty-gritty. Look, we got a cool show for y'all today. Gonna be a little serious at points, but we're gonna have fun with it, right? Today we're talking about a few things. Didn't want to ignore the mass shootings, so we want to talk a little about that. We don't want to belabor the point. Y'all know where we stand. Y'all know what we said tons and thousands of times. Appreciate the support. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk a little bit about gun control. Really just a little quick bit, but going to talk about it. But of course, give us your points and we'll keep it going.
Yep.
And then we're going to talk a little bit about the Second Amendment, because they all kind of tie in together, right? And then we're going to talk about boycotting, because football is about to come back, right? So some of us are confused, like, can we watch it again? Because I mean,
Of course we can watch it.
no, but you know, so let's talk a little bit about boycotting. Also, there was a tweet that came out, kind of went viral. So that kind of go along with that whole, you know, the idea of boycotts and, you know, what should we do? You know, should we do a little more research or whatever? And then, of course, last point, Kat wanted to definitely bring this up. And y'all like relationship talk anyway, so we're going to talk about it. Taking a man's last name in marriage, all right? Y'all can probably imagine where I stand, but, you know, we'll see. We're going to talk about it, right? So anyway, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Yo, Keisha, what's up? All the way from Clarksville, Tennessee.
Hey.
Thanks for joining. So, hey. So, anyways, let's talk about these mass shootings. We've had 17 deadly mass shootings so far this year. And the FBI defines mass shootings as any multiple shooting where 3 or more are left dead or injured. So that means 17 situations where someone shot up a spot. Now, some of these are a result of some of like gang violence or inner city violence. That is part of it, right? But there's stats out there when you're looking at who's more likely to commit a mass shooting. Once again, y'all may not like what I'm about to say, but at the same time, these are the stats. If you got a problem with it, take that up with the people over there at what is it? At Bloomberg. So don't get mad at me. They put out the stats. Y'all take it up with them. But they said from 1982 until August 2019, shooters by race and ethnicity, #1 has been white males between the ages of 18 and 35. For some reason, though, we're still saying that the #1 threat when it comes to violence and stuff to Americans is somehow brown and Latino men. But when we look at the numbers, second place is black men. If we had to put it by number, 64 of them being white. Next in line being black men at 19. But keep in mind, they said a mass shooting can be categorized as where 3 or more are left dead. So in a situation like Chicago, they shoot up the block on some gang type stuff. That's also counted into that number, right? they're not listing necessarily the motivation behind the shooting, but more or less the result of the shooting. Which we're not going to excuse gang violence in our cities, because it's time for us as men and women, if you have, you know, the wherewithal to say this is not right, we need to reach out to those young men and talk to them. But I will put out there, no mass shootings ever in the history of America. I looked this up. I researched deep. If anyone can correct me and tell me I'm wrong, that's cool, because I don't mind being educated and corrected. I ain't never seen a sister, the day in the history of America, has a sister ever committed a mass shooting.
No.
But y'all somehow always call angry. I don't get it. Cat, why are y'all angry? That's what they saying. But y'all ain't never committed that one mass shooting in America. Not one time, not nan time has a sister ever said, I'm gonna shoot up the block.
No, I don't think black women are inherently angry people or inherently, you know, aggressive people. I think we are categorized as angry because many of us have been done wrong by men. A lot of our anger comes from relationships, failed relationships, raising kids on our own, our men being incarcerated, and I think the stress of life is just stressful. I think the stress of life of raising babies, paying bills, doing all these jobs, and then not having a man to commit to you and be faithful to you will cause you to feel some kind of resentment and maybe be guarded and have a wall. And then I think the media takes that as we're angry. I don't think it's that we're angry. I think it's that we are possibly hurt. And so we just have we're really guarded. We have a wall up. And we're a little more stern maybe than other cultures of women because of our circumstances and experiences.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, definitely sisters get like a bad rep like all the time. And I think you covered it all. And I just think when you're looking at statistical data such as this, and they're telling you, yo, my man Marvin, what's up? Shout out Louisiana, the Bayou's in the building. Yeah, Marvin Mackey, you know what I'm saying? Fellow soldier. So yeah, but when you're looking at the statistics of who's committing these shootings, who's killing people, it's amazing that our response, you wonder, do we really care about solving issues? And kind of going back to last week when we were talking about presidential debates and ideas of really solve problems, I don't understand what our politicians are doing, because 80% of Americans, doesn't matter what party you voted for, whether you participated in the vote or not, 80% of Americans all agree that we should be doing something more about gun control. But yet somehow these idiots in DC, right down the way, can't figure it out. They can't do what we need done. My man Marvin said, what's good? He said, hey cat. What you mean, hey cat? No, I'm just messing with you. But yeah, like, we need to do something about these shootings. Mm-hmm. And the people who are voting these guys in, we all agree something should be done. It was crazy because Trump, one of the first things he tried to redo or ratify was Obama's mental health check on gun control. Now he's coming out and saying, oh, we need to do something about mental health. Of course, the first thing they want to slap on it is mental health, because when you look at the perpetrators of these crimes, it's always some kind of sympathy. I can't believe the one young man, I think this was the young man in Dayton, Ohio. I might have it wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, y'all. But anyways, they went to court, and the first thing his mother and them are saying is, well, he didn't have a father in his life, so that's why he's acting this way. Where's that sympathy for all those brothers in Chicago, Philadelphia, Miami, or in some of these places like LA? When these brown and Latino boys get into trouble, the first thing we want to do is detain them, whether it's in school with detention and all that, put them in special classes, isolate them from everyone else. But then, once again in America, and don't call me a racist, don't say I'm stirring the pot, I'm only citing the obvious that's in front of us, right? Mm-hmm. Every time it's a white boy, you call out for what it is. Oh, it's mental health. He didn't have a father. How about the countless black men that don't have fathers in their life?
Right. That's what they
Where's their sympathy? We lock them up every time.
That's what they said, but we all know that. I think it's funny how they allow white men who are shooting up schools the opportunity to claim mental health issues or having no father, but yet there's such a strict sternness put on black men where we're not supposed to be aggressive, we're not supposed to act out. I mean, considering the systems that were created to keep us down and the conditions that we live in, we would be more prone to having mental health issues than someone who's not privileged yet, and still they're not called, you know, terrorists on the headlines. They're not called killers on the headlines. In America today, in 2019, white men are terrorists. They're not Muslim, they're not black, they're not anything other than white men. And I think that right now, America is being shaken to its core because now we're having to address all of the sins and issues that were present from past times that are still present today. And we're, quite frankly, we're embarrassed to the rest of the world because it's like we've been telling the rest of the world as black people since immortal that white people in America have privilege and that minorities are not being treated fairly. And now, on a mass scale, it's embarrassing that we're still in the same mindset, 2019, that we were in the 1960s, that we were in the 1800s. It's embarrassing.
Yeah, facts. Marvin said there was an article saying shootings in part could be from not having a father. I did read that as well. That seemed to be a common thread.
I don't.
And while it's a concern, my thing is if we're going to address young men being prone to violence
and fatherless
together, then I want that same sympathy for all Americans, whether they're white, wealthy, poor, black, Latino, right? Let's not disregard the issue pending who we want to give it to, right? So I agree with you, Dirk. That's true. There's a lot of statistical data linking all that together, and it has validity. However, it loses its validity when we see it disregarded for countless black men and young black boys all the time. But then when it comes to a white young man, now we want to bring it up in a state of mental health. Also, he said, did you see the kid in South Carolina saying how he hate niggers? And that's true. That's what he said.
The older one that was shooting up stuff?
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. There was a video, young man, he's shooting at cans and stuff, and he's just talking about how despicable black people are. We posted on the nitty gritty, and we tagged the police departments. Because we about that action. You know what I'm saying? Like, take that little joke and put him in jail.
I want to address one thing before we move on. So I've been hearing a lot of my counterparts or just people in general like why is everything so race related? I don't see color, yada yada yada. And that may very well be true for people today. I'll give them that. Maybe you don't see color and maybe you don't have the same racist mindset of maybe someone from the 1960s. But the problem is that you're benefiting from the systems that were set in place against color, right? And while you don't realize it, everything was set up to this day and age for it to benefit you. Also, ever since the Spanish Inquisition, color was like the main factor, right? Everything was about color because at that point in time, they didn't know how to differentiate the religion that you were in. So color has been the basis of everything from our existence. Settlers went all over the world and they called Asian people yellow. They called Native American people red. They called us black. And because they were the standard and everywhere that they went, they wanted people to adopt their ideologies and what so have you. You can't now in 2019 say, I don't see color. Why is everything about race? Why are you making about, a white man being a terrorist? They don't want to be labeled. But then other minorities were labeled from the beginning of time. Yeah. And so now people are uncomfortable with this labeling of privilege. You're like, I'm not privileged. And the reality is you got to sit with that. Because you can't erase history and be upset that everything is about color when people who look like you from the beginning of time made everything about color. Yeah. We had colored labeled on, bathrooms.
And that was just 55 years ago, mind you. Just 55 years ago. If you look like one of us, most of you watching, you couldn't use a certain bathroom, couldn't go to a certain school. So there's a lot of inequity that has to be paid back.
Yeah, I don't want to belabor the point. It's just that it's interesting how they always get upset. Like, why can it be all lives matter? Why is it so color stricken?
Because all lives haven't mattered in America. So it's
right, and you have to address.
Oh no, that's.
And you have to address history. You can't just erase it. Now, until you can that's why I like Marianne Williamson, because I feel like she understands the history and she's trying to fix it. I think it would be great if we can get to a place where color doesn't matter, but until we can address the history of things and how they really were and be honest and truthful about it, I don't think we're ever going to be at a place where we're just Americans.
Yeah, like to solve a problem, it's just common sense. You can find it in math. You can find it in every process in America. If you look at hyperboles, the scientific method, how that works, you have to address the issue and understand what the problem is before you can fix it. Marvin said it will never change even if the poorest white think they are better than us. And that's true. And I think that's why it was so important to complete the work that Martin Luther King Jr. was working on before he died. He wanted to do a poor person's march because that idea was going to unify blacks, Latinos, other minorities, along with working class whites and poor whites. Because white people, and this is where I'm an ally for you, right? A lot of you have been fed a bag of lies. Since the beginning of this country, people who came over here looking for opportunity convinced you that it was okay for you not to participate in the full benefits of all the money being made via the slave trade because you couldn't afford it. So they told you, well, because you're white, you're better than these slaves, right? But you were fed a bag of lies because you didn't get a chance to participate in the money that was made. That was really only reserved for a few to this day, what we call the 1% of power and structure in this country. And until you guys realize you're not actually better than anybody and that you're really in the same boat as all of us, is guess what? They ain't taking no white boy and making him the CEO of any company. If you come from the poor South, if you came out of trailer park, you get met with the same disgust and angst that black people do. Prime example was at a really nice restaurant, won't say which one, but there was a couple there, and they were over exclaiming about the food, and you got folks looking at them, established white people looking at these poor white people like, oh my God, they don't know how to conduct themselves in public. She's just acting like calm down, have some couth about you, right? So you get the same nasty, ugly stares that we do. So it's time for us to connect. Just wanted to throw that out. Going back to the comments, Marvin said, just like the opioid crisis, now they want to do something about it. Fact. I guess, Marvin, you agreed. You said exactly. Marvin again, I really love to exchanges when we have you guys. Please comment because this is not just our show, it's our show. Marvin also commented again. He said, some of my white friends feel that way because they call me borderline. I want more on that.
Yeah, borderline.
Like, what do you mean by borderline? I think I know what you mean. In other words, saying that, oh, because maybe you like to fish, or maybe because they feel like you're cultured in their quote-unquote American way, you're not a bad black person, you're a good black person. I've heard that before, especially in the military. But just because I don't want to fish or hunt don't mean I'm a bad black person. I might like dancing in barbecues, but that doesn't make me a stereotype in a negative way. That's just how I like to enjoy my time.
I like chicken and watermelon.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. Actually, I'm not going to belabor that point of watermelon, but I will let you know that watermelon was a black American crop, that it was actually attacked by whites because of the amount of money that it was making, and they wanted to bring down the watermelon industry, so they made it a negative thing about blacks and folks to eat what they started calling nigger apples. There's a reason why they call them nigger apples. Y'all may not like the terms that I'm using, but I'm just quoting factual statistics.
Just like
right?
Nick.
They call it nigger apples because they wanted to demean the power that was coming from watermelon. And hey, no, you can't say watermelon is not good. Watermelon is good for you. It's actually good for your system. It's actually good to purge your body of various cholesterol and stuff like that. Look up the uses of watermelon. Watermelon is actually good for you. You've been lied to say that watermelon is bad. Chris came in and said, did y'all watch Eddie Glaude's comments last Sunday on NBC? No, I heard something about that, but I haven't looked into it. Enlightening us.
Yes.
Marvin's also asking, what did he say? And then Marvin said borderline racist. So are they saying you're borderline racist? Because, and it's interesting because I've had white people say that I'm borderline racist, or because of having pride in being black. But it's a necessity in America to have pride in being black, to love a beautiful chocolate black woman and things like that, because so often those characteristics have been demeaned. Yo, shout out Raphael Harden, my favorite airman. You know what I'm saying? All the way from, where are you stationed now?
I want to just say, because I don't want to belabor the point, we have other topics that we want to address. Mm-hmm. When we are called racist as black folks, it's baffling to me because we don't hold any power. I mean, we just don't. We had the very first black president, and he was, technically, he's biracial, but black president, with Barack Obama, and what are we on, 45? So out of 44 4 presidents, we're the first black one, so technically we can't be racist. If you want to know more about what that means and how we can become prejudiced and the history of systems, please go to our YouTube page. We had Tim Wise on the show.
Oh,
and Brother Man broke it down. Tim Wise is a white guy. He's an author. He's an advocate.
Incredible books.
He broke it down about what it means for blacks to be racist, and which is not really a thing.
The book is White Like Me that they should read.
Exactly,
too.
It's a great book. So go on YouTube, check it out,
and
let us know what you think.
Yeah.
So next topic, sir.
All right, moving along, and it's kind of along the line. I want to talk about the Second Amendment, right? Because when you're talking about gun control, and when we're talking about like the mass shootings and everything, right? Everyone was always talking about, oh, you know, they're trying to take away my guns, my right to have a gun. Well, when we talk about the Second Amendment from the Constitution of the United States, right? It was revised in 1992, but it reads, short, I'm gonna read it for you guys: a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, when we're looking at 1789, what just happened? We were just coming out of the Revolutionary War, fighting our independence from Britain. When we fought at that time, because, mind you, we were the colonies, so when we fought against Britain, we were breaking away. It's almost as if Texas, because this has been said before, it's as if Texas didn't want to be part of the United States anymore. So they don't have their own military technically. So now they're going to take whatever they got to fight against the rest of America. That's pretty much what we did against the British. So at the time, we didn't have an army, but we had organized militia, pretty much the origin of what the National Guard is. So what they were saying is, as we're establishing for the first time on paper a documentation to say this is going to be this country, this Bill of Rights, this Constitution that we're putting together, they said we needed a well-regulated militia. Mind you, they didn't say first that they wouldn't take your guns away. The first comment made is a well-regulated militia, which represents pretty much what makes up the National Guard, saying that there would always be something in place for everyday citizens to be a part of. Because keep in mind, in other countries, to join the military, in some places you had to be from a well-known family. The military wasn't always open to every class of citizen. America wanted to do something different, which was open the military to every class of citizen so everyone could take part, because there's wealth sometimes in the military. There's a reason why when you look up ancient Rome, they would enslave sometimes some folks that would work as a result of the military, but you had to be a Roman of someone of somewhat importance to participate in the military.
My personal opinion,
just get a drop some knowledge on these folks.
This is not necessarily rooted in fact, but in my opinion, I feel like they recruit from all nationalities, because the more folks you have willing to defend the country, the better it is for our defense. Because in my opinion, racism definitely exists in the military. Like the fact that back in the day when they were doing the Civil War, they had the black men on the front line, like, we're going to let them Negroes die first. So in my opinion, and then you hear stories of black men who've been in the military for a long time and they're not getting rank or they're not getting paid the same amount as other people. So in my opinion, I feel like them...
Facts. I dealt with a lot of racism just in Iraqi freedom.
Yeah, so so they make it seem like it's an equal opportunity, but is it? To me, it's more of they're recruiting from all races, because at the end of the day, the more people we can get in the military system, the more people we can... Honestly, you can control their salaries more too. You kind of have more control over people.
I wouldn't say
how they move and operate, and I feel like the more people you have for defending the country. So
well, I'm going to correct that. I'm going to correct that because that's technically not true. But what I will, but no, it's an opinion. But I will tell you that the facts, some of the facts behind it is, whenever we're engaged in multiple efforts, we tend to allow more people in. So, for instance, like. During the early 2000s, during the height of Iraqi freedom and all that, and at the time, that was going to help Bush's re-election, the war efforts and all of that, more or less like revenge against 9/11, right? You got to think about the sentiment of the people, and then of course you have people like Dick Cheney that had their own personal money agendas at play. So at the time, they opened up the military to bring more people in because we're at wartime. So what happens is, because they need people, they're more accepting of immigrants, people that are supposed to be able to get their citizenship by way of joining the military.
Like I said, it's an assurance.
There wasn't an assurance for defense. More or less, it's incentivized though, right? but they don't really necessarily, they're going to be able to get people in, but at that time, they just want folks in, right? So they drop, okay, if you want to say it that way, but they will drop the levels. Nowadays, if you try to join the military, because we're trying to draw back, they might make it a little hard. They might want you to have a little bit of college. Raphael, you're in the Air Force. You can attest to the fact that it's normally really hard to get into the Air Force.
You said discipline is bad also. Elaborate for me. I would love to know what you mean by discipline is bad.
I can imagine what he means, but yeah, please let us know. So when you're looking at the military and who they bring in, a lot of times you have to look at the status of where America is in foreign policy and what our engagements are. If we have multiple engagements going on, then yeah, we'll start dropping the bar. If you have a past offense of some kind, they'll bring you in. Marvin said citizenship for the military takes about 10 years. It's crazy.
That is.
And it used to not be that. Correct me if I'm wrong. It used to be you could do, I think it was 4 or 8 years, right? Just the first initial contract. You didn't have to sign in for a second. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Crazy.
My dad.
You fighting for a country, but you ain't got citizenship.
My dad got his citizenship by way of joining the military, actually.
I feel like
he was from London.
Let me segue and just say this. One thing I find interesting about minorities in general is that right now I feel like a lot of black people, I wouldn't say we're winning, but we're definitely making a statement in this day and age. And I feel like a lot of minorities are always like, kind of, I don't know how the right word, but I don't feel like they're always as supportive as we would prefer. And so it's so funny that you're saying, about the whole citizenship thing, because I feel like for a lot of minorities, if you really want change, you could band together, you could make a statement. I feel like once black folks do it, then it's like, now we'll jump on the bandwagon. Just like when we had the Black Ariel, there was someone saying, oh, we haven't even had a Latino princess. Why are we worried about a black and white princess? And to me, it's like, as a minority, when you are a DACA recipient getting kicked off, stop trying to have the mindset of, at least I'm not a nigga. Understand that we've been here longer than most minorities. We understand how the game is played, and we've made strides. We're still not where we want to be. So it's in your best interest as a minority to align yourself with other minorities who have been here. Okay, I'm done.
Yeah, I understand. There's a little
Just
bit.
saying.
There's some helping that's helping each other. But I mean, when you're talking about the Second Amendment right, so it's amazing. Like people talk about these guns, and I get it. I've lived in the South before. I can appreciate those that hunt. My grandfather has been, I think, the treasurer of his hunting club in Virginia. I think for, I don't know, like maybe 30, 90 years now, or whatever. They made him a lifetime member. Yo, what's up, bro? My brother Richard Altar on.
I do not agree with guns.
No, but I will say this.
I don't
have a problem with guns. I think my biggest issue with guns, though, is for those that live in certain areas, if you want to hunt, that's cool. But you don't need to spray 50 bullets into a deer. First of all, the meat ain't going to be no good if you do all of that. You don't need all that to hunt. A simple rifle. But keep in mind, the Second Amendment wasn't about you having guns. We got grocery stores now. For those that say they need a gun to hunt, I mean, that's not totally true because you can drive to Giant, Kroger,
you get as much meat as possible.
Safeway. I mean, you can go get some meat, all right? Plus, there's a lot of regulations if you're following the law based on what you can do with that meat, how much meat you can take in. I think in Tennessee, you weren't allowed to take in more than, I think it's like 80 pounds or something like that. My hunters let me know. I might be quoting that totally wrong. But there's a limit on how many deers you can kill anyways.
I have a suggestion. I think that for guns, there should be maybe like a standard 3 guns for all American folks. And you pick one of the standard 3 guns, and if you do what you do with it. If you can't kill a deer with that gun, oh well, you wasn't meant to kill it.
Well, I mean, they kind of have that somewhat in place.
That's my opinion. All these AK-47s and silencers and things you see on movies or in the military, why are you as a common person even having that? I mean, the fact that you got an automatic weapon, where does one even get an automatic weapon?
And then when people say it's for protection, and this is the thing that...
Where do you even get that?
Well, they get it from these gun shows. And here's the thing. People say, well, I do it because I need to be able to protect my family. I need to do this. If they invade us, yada, yada, yada. First of all, they invade us. America has the highest population of guns to people than any other country. We have plenty of guns. Second of all, we have a well-regulated militia. At this point, mind you, this was 1789 when this was written. At this point now, not only do we have a National Guard in every state, but we have a regular army, we got a Navy, we got an Air Force. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times before they even get here, we didn't blow everything up. We decimate whole cities with, like, literally with striker jets. Like, we have more than enough protection. I mean, between the most powerful countries, we got nuclear bombs aimed at each other right now. If something pop off, we're not going to get a chance to shoot no little M16 because stuff would have been blown to bits before we even get to that, all right? So when it comes to guns, I think we've hypersensitized what that is because certain gun manufacturers in America, certain people that make money off of that, they benefit from trying to create this false sense of fear for you to need a gun. And what I've seen from my college years, because, you know, I wasn't just in college learning, I was being a knucklehead, and what I've seen from people I was around is that typically a gun would escalate the situation faster. I've seen plenty of times where somebody would get into a fight in the club, they don't got no hands, they behind whooped, comb, head, all the way back. And the first thing they want to do is because they get whooped in front of girls, in front of friends, and all that stuff. I'm going to go to the trunk. I'm going to go to the trunk because you couldn't handle getting your tail whooped. But you was talking all that cash in the club. When the song came on, Nuck If You Buck, you was in somebody's face acting like you wanted all the smoke. You got that smoke. You got that hot fire to your eye. And now you want to go get a gun and shoot somebody.
Toxic masculinity.
But if there was no gun there, most people would just take that L and keep it moving, or you fight that brother.
Toxic masculinity.
But something about a gun escalates something.
That's why Nipsey Hussle died.
Yeah, the dude couldn't take the words coming out of a man's mouth, so therefore you have to escalate it and go get a gun. That's what access to guns can do a lot of times. And I don't want to hear this stuff, well, background checks don't check everything, because when you look at the mass shootings, these people typically have a clear background. Or a lot of times due to racism and who the police want to go after, when the mother says to the police hey, my son has made some comments, the students in the school are saying he pretends he's shooting us with his hands, y'all don't go after him, but meanwhile, all I gotta do is drive a Range Rover down 410 right now, and I'll have 4 cops behind me trying to figure out why a black man is in this car. Shout out to my bruh, councilman out there in Montgomery County, Will Jawando. That very thing happened to him.
All I'm going to say is with this whole gun thing, and we'll end it here, is that, you know, people want to advocate for guns, but we've seen a lot of the mass shootings where they're targeting certain demographics. The guy that went into the church and shot at black people, the people in El Paso, shot at people Latino. It's all race driven. So in my mind, you don't need no gun. In my mind, and that's the thing, most of the people who make policies in this country don't look like us, so they're not going to make a policy to prevent people who look like them, who are technically the terrorists today, to not have the gun. So in my mind, if it was up to me, y'all get 3 gun options. It's going to be a very simple, like, 1 bullet at a time situation. If you can't kill a deal with that, I'm sorry, bruh. 1 minute for you to hunt. You can go down to the butcher and get the meat that you need. Other than that,
go to Whole Foods.
Yeah. and also with the 1 bullet kind of gun, in my mind, somebody can still die, but in my mind, if you are trying to defend yourself, at least if you shoot somebody in the leg, you know, they can.
But you're not shot to shoot in the leg. You're trained on shoot in her ass. I understand what people say.
The point being is that hopefully with 1 little bullet, he or she can still live, and if they need to, you know, get processed through, you know, the court to go to jail, hopefully they can still live and do that, or what have you. Because with these automatics, I mean, people dying on sight. People just dying on sight. They literally like shooting them up. Like, it's like a, you know, the automatics, like the movies, like you just like busting out, just blood everywhere. So, you know, just saying.
Yeah, Raphael also said center mass, right? Yeah, that's how everybody's trained.
You know, simple guns.
So we're going to switch gears a little bit, right? We want to talk about boycotting. Now, we're about to have some fun now, right? But I just want to know, so the reason why this whole thing of boycotting came up is really from 2 reasons. One, there was a tweet that went viral. I know a lot of you guys seen it. It said, so here's a list of companies supporting Trump's re-election. It read Bang, In-N-Out Burger, Chick-fil-A. Oh my God, that hurt my heart.
And Chick-fil-A. And they're all supposed to be Christian companies.
Yeah, but I'm going to get to that. That is going to be something I'm going to bring up later. Chick-fil-A, Taco Bell, McDonald's, nobody eats that crap. Wendy's, KFC, Pizza Hut, Olive Garden, Waffle House, IHOP, that kind of stung a little bit. Carl's Jr., same as Hardee's. They're the same company. In some areas of the country, they're called Carl's Jr. In some other areas, they're called Hardee's. But them interstate burgers, man, amazing. I remember tearing them up back in high school.
I'm going to tell you what burger fire. In-N-Out Burger. I'm real In-N-Out Bang.
Raphael said, what? The Lord chicken? Look, I get it, right? So now I did some research on this because I was like, man, are they really gonna support Trump? I mean, is Trump really the Christian vote? So what I found out, right? So there's actually more research to be done. So I feel like you guys would want to do. Yes, Chris, we said Waffle House, and I know because Waffle House the spot, man. Ain't nothing like getting a triple hash. What is it? Shredded, melted, capped. And something. Yeah. Like, you know, back in college.
Chick-fil-A is like the premier restaurant on there. Everybody loves Chick-fil-A.
Like every I know, right?
All right, so what's the research?
So the research being done is that this may be somewhat taken out of hand. So
taken out of context, possible?
Yeah. So when they looked at like people that donated money in 2016, while some of these companies did donate, but keep in mind that companies like Chick-fil-A are like a Christian like company. They close on Sundays or whatever. And then y'all know the relationship between
I just want to say one thing. Chick-fil-A closed on Sunday, but from what I've been told, they still been bringing in more money than the other restaurants.
Yeah, they do. So keep in mind that
must be something about that faith.
So keep in mind that when this is put out, this is also an assumption that they're going to support. Not all of these have been verified. Also, in some cases, like Starbucks, they're not on the list. But there were 5 Starbucks employees that gave more than $800 a piece. So when they calculate companies to Trump's. I mean, they were employees. They weren't
$800. What would they give him $800? He don't need no money.
But trying to stick to the facts and we get this information out is when they give that money, and by them being Starbucks employees, when they list that money, sometimes for certain reports, it'll make it look like as if Starbucks gave money to the campaign, because it hits a certain money threshold. So, but everyone knows Starbucks is probably
very liberal.
a very liberal company, and most least likely of a lot of companies to support Trump. So you have to take in consideration in this situation how many of these people have done that. One company I don't see listed on here, but we know for a fact they support Trump, Papa John's, right? So just because a company is not listed doesn't mean. And then I guess it comes to the question of boycotting. What would we do with this information, right? So we seen the NFL boycott. That kind of fell flat on its behind, right? I mean, I guess we've seen some change done, but now Kaepernick's got his money. I ain't really heard him say a lot.
It fell flat on its behind because people who look like us, i.e. black folks, didn't have common sense to stop watching football. It's really simple. You didn't have to do nothing. Out of all the boycotts in history, that's the #1 boycott that fires me up, because it's like, it's not like the bus boycott where you had to walk to work. You didn't have to do nothing besides be black, live, and just simply just not watch NFL. It's that simple. You could have watched a movie. You could have got active. You could have done something.
Could have been on the nitty-gritty show because we were on at 8 p.m.
Anything else.
Eastern time.
If every black person in America, how many black people in America, we got
16 million?
About 16 million. That's
well, we make up, sorry, not 16 million.
12%.
We make up 13% of the population.
Okay.
Something like that.
And had we would have done that and not supported the NFL, do you understand how monumental that would have looked? Out of all the boycotts in history, that's the #1 that we really could have made a serious mark in history had we would have just not watched for one season.
Yeah, but you know, people didn't. So then it kind of asked the question. I want to hear y'all thoughts. Can we watch football this season? I mean, obviously. I mean,
and the second question is when people do call upon you to boycott and make a sacrifice of some sort, are you willing?
I just don't know. Am I going to lose my activist card if I decide to watch Haskins Jr. throw that rock for the Redskins? I want to know. Can somebody let me know? Is it okay, Chris? Are you saying no, we're not watching football, or is it okay? Like, no, the boycott doesn't matter. Can you make that absolutely clear for me? You know, if I'm going to lose my black activism card if I watch football. I mean, I'm just curious.
At this point, I think it's okay to watch football. He says access denied. That's fine.
Access denied. All right, so I guess I'm not watching. All right, I'm gonna stay true.
To me, I think if we were to watch football this season, it's no big deal. But the people last season who couldn't do it, it was just annoying to me. Because it's like, it doesn't require anything besides you just not turning on that channel. How difficult was it? And you had people like, y'all see the game last night? It's like, my dude. Like, and that's the thing about us as a community. So I'm gonna say this one time. It kills me because we only admit, it's like our mindset is like, unless it's at our front door, unless your daughter is being like punished for something or killed for something, you simply just do not care. And you have to get out of that mindset. For us to progress as a community, we have to care about people who may not be directly related to us. And that's the problem that I have.
Mama, Mama, you know, I love you. Mama just joined on the chat. What's up, Mama? No, but so, and then when it comes to boycotting, it's like, I don't know if our boycotts are as effective as they were in the 60s. And I think that's two-part. One, in the 60s, you still had bathrooms you couldn't go into. So the racism was obvious.
It was overt.
It was so overt that you couldn't deny it. And if you wanted access to a better life, stuff that you was just taken away from, you couldn't help but do something about it. And then I think the other thing is that our communities were more about us because of because not just red, I'm talking about actual segregation. The lawyers in your community, the activists in your community, the ones that had made it, they still lived in your community. So I think the community had a better thread of unity back then. And I think now there are so many options, there are so many avenues as to, it's like, if you do join in boycott, it takes so much more work probably now.
Yes,
to effective because one, we're more parsed out. Now, if you're in Montgomery, Alabama, and black people start using the bus, right? Then it has an obvious effect because these black people live in like a small subset of society due to segregation, actual physical laws.
That makes sense.
These days, you can live in Hyattsville, you can live in Bethesda. If you're out there in Tennessee, because I got some Tennessee people on here, you could be in Madison, you could be in Northside or Clarksville or whatever, right? But you know, still, it's like how much how much effect do you have when you do boycott? Just to get some comments before I keep going.
Yeah, it's a challenge.
Because part of the water cooler conversation. Yeah, that's true. Exactly. You know, and that was coming from Chris. My mama said hello. Hey, mama. You was looking good on your anniversary, girl. You still got it.
He said,
you still got it.
And Chris said he was just joking about that.
He's joking about the anniversary card. So when you say you're joking, does that mean I could watch Haskins throw the rock at least one time this year, like at a sports bar? I won't actually add any views. I'll go to a sports bar for it. But can I watch like Haskins throw the rock at least one time, see the Redskins get a win? I just want to know. Just let me know. You know, DC do. So yeah, but when you talk about boycott, so then I bring it up because even with this situation, right? Earlier this year, they said we're gonna boycott Gucci, but you know, cats are still rocking Gucci, and then they only called for a 3-month so they wasn't really trying to like give it up. It's not like cats was like, oh, we're gonna stop, rocking Gucci and wear Pyre Moss.
But you know, and it's so funny because we were talking the other day.
Go Browns. You a Browns fan? Are you just saying that?
He's married to a Cleveland woman.
Or did Lana say that? Who said that? Lana must have said that, right? Browns is trash.
Looking real tough lately in that lineup, though.
Yeah, y'all got what's his name?
Back to the point. The thing about so when he was talking about how we didn't support boycotting Gucci, it's so interesting because the other day we were talking and you were saying that you see a Jewish person, you would never see them drive a BMW. You would never see them buy. Right,
and they're not loud about it. They don't have to make a loud post or whatever. But you gotta respect that because you gotta think about it. When Hitler was doing what he was doing in Germany, that was such a long time ago. So one would think
still don't mess with it. So one would think like Jewish people would be over it. You know, we've progressed. That was a part of history. If I want to drive a Mercedes, but
no, that's because the history of BMW, Mercedes, they made those war weapons used in World War II.
Well,
so they still got that energy. Like we ain't buying nothing.
But I respect it because it's like, you. Excuse me. I
got you. Go ahead and get yourself together.
Yeah.
So, but with that, no, I get it, and you gotta respect it. We were talking about this earlier. You have to respect it because they still have that energy. They're still saying, "Hey, you know what? I'm not gonna do that." Oh, shout out Lana. She said, "Yes, it's all day. Go Browns. Y'all still trash though. I just want to let y'all know, y'all still trash. You still trash." No, I'm just messing with you. I gotta poke holes. My mama said thank you. You know I love you, lady. You like I said, you look really good. 30. Look, I just want to say something. 30. Actually, this will be a good segue, right?
Okay.
This will be a good segue. We want to end on this because I think this is gonna get a lot of conversation.
This is gonna get a lot of conversation.
But it's just something to think about with boycotting. Do your research, see if somebody's really doing that. And if we're gonna boycott, we need to start thinking about strategies to get stuff done. But back to my mama, my beautiful mama. Shout out to my pops. Y'all been married 33 years, right? Clap that up, that's Clap that up. 33 years, still look good. Y'all look really good, like all of the going out and stuff y'all did. I was really proud of y'all. Like, man, look at mama still got it. Now, just to let y'all know, my mother's name is Mamie Denise Altar. Her maiden name is Gibbs. right? But she took her man's name when she got married, right? Just wanted to put that out there because it's relevant. So, you know, the conversation came up. I forgot what brought this on, but we talked about taking on a man's last name. There are plenty of women out there because of maybe certain school certain school that they've been through, or because of certain.
I mean, just their status,
or
their
status,
career.
like, you know, maybe like they're a celebrity or whatever. Some people like, you know, hyphenate the name, but I ain't taking on the whole name.
Let's use Beyonce. She goes by Beyonce Knowles Carter. To me, that makes sense. We've known her as Beyonce Knowles for forever.
Actually, we don't know her as so much as Beyonce Knowles. We just know her as Beyonce. She's her first name.
But we know
her last name don't really matter.
No, it
like
does.
that.
I mean, like Beyonce is one of the people, women celebrities, where you know everything about her. You know her mama name is Tina. You know her daddy name is Matthew. You know what I'm saying? You just know her name is Beyonce Knowles, and then she has the Carter.
Oh, see, what's up? Shout out LA.
Also with Jada Pinkett Smith, she goes by Jada Pinkett Smith. She didn't go to Jada Smith. I believe Gabrielle Union is now Gabrielle Union Wade. Point being, if you are an established woman in Hollywood, or you have a career such as you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, people know you as that. From what I've been told, it's easier to just hyphenate the name because maybe all your paperwork for your practice is your maiden name, and so it becomes too much work to change the firm's name to your now husband's name. So most people feel like, why would I want...
If you're hyphenating the name, you're still changing stuff anyways.
Right, but most of the hyphen, from my understanding, most of the times when a woman hyphenates it, it's more like an addition. It's not like she's... Like, if your firm is called Johnson, you're not going to change the firm to Johnson DaCosta. And when people introduce you, you'll say, you know, my name is Mary Johnson DaCosta. But you're not going to change the firm's name to now DaCosta because people know your firm as your maiden name. Lana says, move the maiden name to your middle name if you are an established. Yes, hyphenate the name is harder. I've heard that too. I heard that as a woman you can take your middle name off and then put your maiden name as your middle name and then take your husband's last name. So we want to hear from you guys about the whole last name.
So Marcia said, I'm keeping my last name and adding my husband's. I have 2 pageant titles in the history books in my brand. I don't care if there's a hyphen or not, but the last name will be after mine. So this is what I say to that, right? And I know we're always going to get a lot of engagement around this topic. Me personally, I would be the Neanderthal in the building to say, change that last name, shorty. Like, you know what I'm saying? If you want to love me, you going to love all of me. And here's the thing. For those that don't like it, you're not dating me or marrying me anyway. So I really don't care about your opinion. Nah, let me not go that hard. But seriously, like, instead of getting all bent out of shape because there's brothers out there that are archaic like me, they want you to change your last name. The good thing is you don't have this. You can just be like, well, you know what? That's a point of contention for me. I don't want to go further. But don't wait till the day of the marriage and then decide you're gonna want to hyphenate the name.
Do you like what Lana was saying when she was saying?
No, I get now. I will say this. I understand women that want to hyphenate the name, but I think there should be a really good reason, and it should be properly discussed. Don't just be doing it because I want to keep my identity. Because guess what? You gave up that identity. That man also gave up his identity when you guys decided to become one flesh. Can I get an amen? Right? So your identity changed once you join yourself in marriage anyway. Second thing is, I get it if you have an established practice, especially in cases. Because if you read like anybody that talks about etiquette and all that, a lot of the times in the history why you had the hyphenated names, it wasn't because of a woman's status, it was more so because of the money passed down via the woman. Because maybe the woman came from Ellie. Hold up, let me finish.
I know.
I'm gonna get to the comments.
Okay.
Let me finish.
Okay, go.
So, I'm just saying, like, you be cutting you off. Yeah, I'll be horrible.
I didn't even cut him off.
Look, no, but anyways, the reason why they did that back in the day, because back in the day with the names, or in the event that a father doesn't have a son, but there's this great wealth to be passed down, then they would broker hyphenating the name because what they want to do is continue that lineage of that family. However, for all you women out there that got brothers, that's not you. Unless that brother's gay, then okay, then maybe you won't be able. No, I'm just saying because if the brother's gay, he's not going to have any kids. Or
what are you saying? People who are gay can still have kids.
Look, I'm just saying, but
what are you saying right now?
But there's some that don't. I mean, it's more likely not to happen in that community because of challenges in that.
If a a man is alive and he's gay, he still has the opportunity to have kids, whether it's his own or whether it's by adoption.
But then
that name will still be passed down.
Anyway, look, she take that one too serious. All I'm saying is, that was the reason back in the day why you were hyphenating the name, because it was some type of money being passed down via family generational, or because that father only had daughters, so therefore to pass down the lineage of that name to keep it somewhat, because you're talking about now naming your kids hyphenated whatever. You get what I'm saying?
We have comments and I definitely want to address it.
Yeah,
IG and Facebook.
I'll go to we go to Facebook first.
Thanks Juan for the love and shout out, love you son. Move the middle name. Okay, so to Lana's point, I agree with that, and I'll come back to that. Oh no, she already read that one.
Oh.
Branding / marketing does not trump marriage. The symbolism matters. That's from Christopher McKinney.
I agree with you, Chris.
All the fellas are saying amen, amen, amen. Agree. On IG, I can't read that far. Can you read my sister?
Raphael said, preach it. I feel you, brother. You know what I'm saying? You don't change that name.
Read that one.
All right.
I believe. I think that's what she says.
She said, I believe different strokes for different folks, whatever works for you. And I agree with that sentiment because, you know, that's between the two people getting married. Y'all got to figure it out. If I see a woman with a hyphenated name, I'm not going to make any comments on your marriage. I'm not going to disrespect that man because y'all figure that out for whatever reason. I feel you. She said, my last name become my middle name and his name will be my last. And see, and that's a good, that's a compromise in a matter of a conversation. You know what I'm saying? All it takes is conversation, people to figure this stuff out.
But see, okay, so this is what I was going to say. I feel like if you're young, let's say like 20 years old, and you don't really have a career established, no one really knows who you are, and you're still trying to figure out the world and you're married, to me it makes sense to go ahead and take your husband's last name. Very simple. But if you are a woman getting married later in life, i.e. 30 and above, you're established, you have a firm, you're a doctor, you're a singer, you're a talk show host, what so have you. I feel a good compromise is the one of you taking your current last name and making that your middle name, and then, so it's not hyphenated, but I think that makes sense because if you are a lawyer or a doctor and people know you as Dr. Johnson, all of a sudden it just becomes it becomes too difficult at that point to change paperwork, change the licensing, tell all your patients refer to me as this. I'm sure in passing you can say, I got married, here's my new last name. But if people were to still refer to you as Dr. Johnson, I don't think any guy, would be offended by that because at the end of the day, you are established. And as most men nowadays, hold on, we about to throw that monkey wrench right up in here. Y'all always talking about how y'all want a girl who can hold her own, who can bring something to the table, who has finances to bring to the table. So when you find one and she wants to continue to have her last name, whether it be hyphenated or a middle name, what's the problem? She bringing in money to the household, so what's the problem?
If you ain't bringing a firm to the house, if you ain't bringing 3 generations of wealth to the house.
If she's bringing 6 figures or more, she's doing better than most women.
Yeah, but just because you make 6 figures don't mean that you have a reason to keep the last name. Actually, almost to Marcia's point, she said, if I remove Hawkins, that negatively impacts her entire brand. But for her case, she has a show, right? But if you're making 6 figures as an employee of the U.S. government, Slim, you is changing that name. If you a lawyer at such and such a law firm, but your name is not in the headway, you have no reason to hold on to it. Or guess what? You can take the high road, keep your last name, and just keep it all to yourself. You don't need to share in this relationship at all. You can keep it stepping, like Morton would say in the show.
Lana says the hyphen is confusing for children. It's literally easier to have your husband's last name. However, unless you are established, I can't see the rest of the comment. But okay, that's why I'm agreeing with her. She's like, keep it simple, change that last name. No, what Lana is saying is...
She said, unless you're established. Lana, please correct. I get what you're saying.
No.
She said hyphen is confusing to children.
It's
literally easier to take your husband's last name. Did she say this?
Talking about people telling people off. What Lana is saying is that she thinks that what you should do as an established woman is to take your last name, move it to your middle name, therefore taking your husband's last name. So all of you have the same last name. But that way, if you feel like you have some kind of, embellishment with your current last name, you can have it as your middle name and you're fine. Personally, I don't really like my middle name, so it's not a big deal to take on a different last name. I feel like my middle name is very common. There was no je ne sais quoi or something spicy about my middle name. So I'm like, okay, that can go.
So we got comments. Lana said, to be clear, my last name is Lana Perry McKinney.
Okay.
Chris is laughing. I can only imagine, right? Mamie Altar said, take your husband's last name. That's, hey, and she's been married for 33 years. She might know what she's talking about. That's all I said.
My dad had daughters too.
And you don't have any brothers, right, Lana? Let me know. But Lana,
I have a friend that has her name hyphenated, but then again, she's doctor, so.
I'm just saying. Also, Marcia said from IG, furthermore, I won Miss Congeniality and Miss California USA pageant in 2010, and my name and picture is on the website. If my last name is removed, nobody would know I was the same person.
Oh,
she
did
put
you
on your
say,
face.
I didn't know you didn't like your middle name, sis. I think it's pretty to go by Katrina Marie. Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
I was thinking everybody in that time frame had the same middle name, so it was like, okay.
And then Simona said, this is from Facebook, y'all. I'm going to be
Simona S. White forever! Exclamation point.
That's why I'm single, though. Message.
Crazy. She is crazy.
And then Lana said she doesn't have any sisters. So once again, it goes back to the original point that sometimes in this situation, if there are no brothers and there's no one to pass on the family name, I understand, and I'm very sympathetic to that reason as to why someone would want to hyphenate the name, because then you want to hyphenate the son's name to keep the family name alive. That's when you have families, generation that are.
That's so funny you say that though, because so my last name is Hawkins, and in our generation, meaning like the generation of my siblings and I, there are only 2 boys. And Marcia, correct me if I'm wrong. 2 boys that I can think of that have the last name to carry. Everybody else was a girl, everybody else's parents were women, so the woman took their husband's last name, so they don't have the last name of Hawkins anymore. So it's really interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, in that situation, I definitely understand
I can see your point. Oh, your dad. Hold on, I'm gonna read your dad's.
I'm gonna read it. I can see your point, Katrina. That makes sense. There are a lot of professional women who are establishing their careers, financiers, etc. And I get it. If you're at that point, fine. But once again, if you got a job at the U.S. government, you just got a good paying job, that's not justification to say, oh, well, we're going to just hyphenate my name. You better be bringing a company behind that, or have some type of certification in the IE. You want some badges or something to make a case for why your name is important to how you make your money. Because last time I checked, if you're just an employee at a sales company or whatever, your last name don't matter.
Wait a
you know what I'm saying?
So Christopher said, why does it matter to women that much? I will address that. Lana says, historically, you should have your mother's last name. That's a different combo. Elaborate. What you mean, sis? Because I'm a little confused with that one.
Yeah, I'm a little close.
I thought it was your daddy's.
I mean, if you're talking about Europeans, now if you're talking about Spanish people, and I think some French, they do take the mother's last name, but I think then you're talking about a cultural difference.
Really?
Right? Yeah, because Latinos, they take both names all the time. And I forgot what order it is. If I have any Latino or Hispanics on the right now, just
He said just an employee. The reason why
you feel me, Chris?
The reason why I think it matters.
I'm just saying, Slim, you changing your name.
So I think in the cases of you just being an employee, yes. But if you have a legitimate business, I think that with the paperwork that can get a little sticky to go back and change. Like I have a friend, or a few friends. They're married. They took their husband's last name, but technically on paper, y'all tell me. Cause I don't know. I don't know if it's true they took his last name because they haven't changed their birth certificate or their social security card with the last name. So does that mean they took it or no? I don't know.
You can take the name, but you still have to go in after the fact and change all the legal stuff. And actually, you want to change it because if you're going to be going by that name professionally going forward, or people are going to start addressing you as Mrs. XYZ, then you're going to want that to reflect on your ID. And then once it reflects on your driver's license, you want to go back for credit reasons and things of that nature. You want to go back and change it, but you do have to go through the process of changing that.
Oh, she was saying from a genealogical perspective, the family tree is followed through the mother.
That's genetically though, but we're not talking about. But when you're talking about from a last name standpoint in American society, or talking about from where the American society comes, England, it always follows the father's last name.
So someone is asking me,
look at British royals.
Are you willing to change your name? You have a brand. The answer is yes, because as you guys know, if I ever became famous as a singer, I wouldn't go by my first and last name anyway. I would go by Katniss. So it doesn't really matter. And it's not like the person whose last name is not like the name is like something like, I don't know, Goofy, like it's some last name.
So, I heard some women say like, I ain't taking a dude's last name, but the last name is corny. Should that matter? I mean, if he's not corny,
no, it's not corny. I mean, it's definitely like childish to say, but there are some last names you be like, ugh.
So if the last name is Booty Check, it's like, nah, man, I ain't even feeling that.
That last name sound like,
yeah. My kids gonna be clown.
There is somebody last name named Booty. Like, I don't want my last name being Booty. Like, that's just weird. Sorry.
My thing is though,
you are forever Hurricane Cat. So yeah, I would never go by that. He said, y'all not mad at that. I would never
Simona.
go by. Yeah,
you funny.
I will go by Katniss. That will always be my stage name, my brand name, Cat to the Nest. So I don't matter. I think that my last name maybe being in the middle. To Juan's point, I could do that or keep my middle name. I have a brother, so he'll be able to pass on the Hawkins legacy. My dad's happy about that.
What up, Chris?
So yeah. So if I didn't have a brother, I probably would.
Oh, see you later, IG. Oh, my bad, IG. Y'all know.
Oh, it's almost 9. Okay, so it's 9 o'clock. All right. Well, this was a good conversation. I told Juan, y'all put in the comments what topics do you guys really like. I know that he's very, very political, but I feel like we have the most engagement when it comes to relationships. And the reality is, our brain has to grow and thrive, and so we need to engage what's engaging to the people.
So please, can y'all hit us up in the DMs
about the topics that
y'all can email us. You can hit us up at Katniss@thenittyGrittyShow.com, j.thecos@thenittyGrittyShow.com. You can hit up the Nitty Gritty Show 2017 at gmail.com. We got a couple emails. Of course, y'all know y'all can find us on Facebook at the Nitty Gritty Show. You can hit us up on IG at the Nitty Gritty Show. Just reach out to us or Nitty Show if you look on Twitter. I do check that from time to time.
And I don't care what y'all say. If somebody's last name is Booty and there are people with last name named Booty, like I would not want to change my last name to Booty.
Oh, wow.
Sorry.
So if there's any booties out there, I mean, I guess you got a little bit of a challenge. You might have to accept, you know.
Who wants their last name being Booty? Like, hey, Mrs. Booty? Like, what?
That's a compliment these days. Hey, Miss Big Booty.
You ain't got no big booty. Then it's like, what?
It's kind of an oxymoron.
Why she going by Mrs. Booty?
Wow. Okay, that was hilarious. Well, we're about to get up out of here. The song that I'm going to leave y'all with, this guy's a talented person. I've actually used a couple of his tracks for this. It's a guy by the name of DUCKWRTH. This is from his 2017 album, An Extra Ugly Mixtape. Came out in 2017. The song is Mansion Freestyle. Pretty dope. So I'm going to leave y'all on this cold track. I've been feeling him for a minute, you know what I'm saying? But anyways, we thank y'all for being on the show today. We had a great time with y'all. It's your boy, Jamie Costa. And together we are the Nitty Gritty. My mom said I love my last name. I said, yes, him. Okay. Married 33 years, y'all. I'm just saying, there's something to that.
Feeling that shit ain't even real. Manifest a real. When I put up, I got a kill. Not really with a weapon. But more with a steel. And how many verses it was.
That fucker's getting hit, DUCKWRTH. Very talented. Can play music, can sing, can like rap. Don't cat. We like dope music on the Nitty Gritty Show. Just saying. But we thank y'all for joining. We had a good time. Please give us your suggestions on what we should talk about next. In September, we will be doing that relationship series. If there's anything specifically you want to see us talk about concerning relationships, please let us know.
Wait, why
so we
y'all
can talk about